So today, February 21st, 2021 is the Legend of Zelda's 35th anniversary. Welcome back, my friends, to another video here on the channel. Today, I want to take things a little bit more basic and simpler than what most people are doing. And I just want to talk about some of my favorite stories with the franchise. We're going to go through every single game that ever came out. We're just going to talk about it. It's going to be kind of like a discussion, conversation. And I want this to be an opportunity for you guys to have a discussion down in the comment section below. I want you guys to engage in this conversation with me. And just let me know, first of all, which is your favorite Zelda game? Have you even ever played a Zelda game? If not, are you looking to get into the franchise? You know, it's going to be a great place for you know, Legend of Zelda veterans and newcomers to just kind of interact and share stories and you know, maybe ask questions amongst each other or whatever, and all that good stuff as well. So again, I want this to be a place where, you know, it doesn't matter if you're a hardcore longtime veteran fan of the franchise, or like I said, if you're just fairly new to the franchise. Maybe Breath of the Wild was your first Zelda game. Maybe you've even yet to play your first Zelda game, and like I said, you're interested in getting in the series. Then it's the perfect place, no matter what, for all of you. You know, if you have any kind of interest in the franchise whatsoever, you know, like I said, whether you're a hardcore fan or whether you're a casual fan, new, old, whatever. So again, I want to share some of my stories, and through my stories, you know, maybe you'll learn new things about the franchise. Maybe you'll get to, you know, take a trip down memory lane. Maybe it'll remind you of your own memories, or maybe you don't have memories with some of these games and you just want to hear someone else's memories on them. So that's kind of the idea of this video. Again, a very simple kind of video. Wasn't really planned. I just kind of last minute, I was like, you know what? I just want to go through the franchise and talk about it. If you are new to the channel, you don't know much about me, I am a massive Legend of Zelda fan, and that's kind of why I have a Nintendo specific channel. I have two gaming channels. This one is just for Nintendo content because I just love Nintendo. And the reason I have this channel, first of all, is because I have such a passion of for Nintendo games specifically, and just Nintendo in general. The reason I create content at all with gaming is because I have a passion for gaming, and I love to share that passion with other people. So that's why I kind of love this concept of this video, is to be able to share my passion with you guys and hear your guys' stories and passion as well. So yeah, we're gonna take a trip down memory lane. I got a stack of games here. I don't own every single game, but I want to show you the games as we talk about them and just my memories with them. So I have a bunch here that you don't even see on camera right now. Like, there's stacks right here of a bunch of different games. So we're gonna start at the very beginning. The Legend of Zelda, the original. I don't own this one, unfortunately, but the original came out in 1986 on February 21st in Japan. So we're going, when I give you guys release dates, we're going off the Japanese release dates, because some games, like for example, the original Legend of Zelda came out 1 year before it came out in North America. It didn't come out till August 22nd of 1987 in North America. That's almost a year and a half later. So yeah, and same thing with the second Zelda and so on and so forth. So we're gonna go through this. So back in the day, when I was super young, my parents owned an NES and a Super NES. Now the Super NES was kind of like the main console I played growing up, but the first console I did play was the NES, and I remember clear as day playing the original NES version of The Legend of Zelda, the very first Legend of Zelda that ever came out. Now, I'm sure even if you have never played this game, I'm sure that you are familiar with it. I mean, the classic line, "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this," right? And the old guy gives you a sword. Classic game. Not the first game I beat. I actually can't remember if I've ever beaten this game. I know I've played it a good amount throughout my life. I just don't know if I've ever beaten it. So that's something I'm gonna have to go do just to make sure that I can say that I have, because I don't know if I have. I can't remember, but it was definitely not my first one that I beat. It's the first one I played way back in the day on the NES. I was super young. As far back as my memory can take me is where I can, you know, recall playing this game all the way back then. So a great game, great classic. You should definitely try it out, whether you beat it or not, just to see where the franchise started. You should go back and play it, especially if you've played Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was heavily inspired by the original game. If you didn't know that, now you know. Anyways, we got the next one, which is the Legend of Zelda, or sorry, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. So Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, I only played in the recent years, recently. I never played back in the day, at least not that I remember. If I did, like I said, I don't remember it. But The Adventure of Link came out in 1987, January 14th, 1987 in Japan. And then a year and a half later hold on. almost 2 years later, because it came out in 1987 in January in Japan, but not till December 1988. So that's almost 2 full years later in North America. Yeah, so I never played that game until recently. Not really my personal cup of tea. I'm not crazy about that game personally. I don't know. I'm not. I just didn't really kind of. I don't know. I didn't like it too much myself. I feel like it's like the most different game out there, and I don't know. I personally, it didn't really kind of click that one with me. Maybe eventually I'll go and try to beat it. I know there is a lot of people that love the game, but that's kind of my little experience with it. Moving on to the third entry in the franchise, A Link to the Past. Now again, I don't have a copy of it. I should. My parents do. My parents still have the Super NES version of A Link to the Past. I of course own it on like virtual consoles and like my 3DS and stuff like that. But A Link to the Past was the first Zelda game that I beat, and so it holds a special spot in my heart, and it's a great game. Ask anyone who's beaten the game, and they most likely tell you that it's an amazing game, whether it was their first game or not. So I guess in a sense, I have a little bit of a bias since it was the first game I ever beat, so it does hold a special place in my heart for that reason. But I think beyond that, people will generally say that it is a great game. Go beat it for yourself. You know, don't try to compare it to like Breath of the Wild. Obviously, they're completely different games. I mean, every entry in the Legend of Zelda series is a completely different game, but there's still that core like fundamentals of what makes a Legend of Zelda game. So definitely go play it. It's a great game. I remember back in the day, beating it, we didn't have internet back then. I know I'm kind of dating myself. It kind of feel really old saying that. Internet actually came into existence when I was still quite young. But at this specific moment of my life, we didn't have internet, so I couldn't go look up guides or anything. I had to figure this out on my own. I don't even know if my dad ever beat this game, but I tried to ask him, you know, if he knew how to do things, and he tried to figure it out, but he wasn't, like I said, I don't think he beat the game, so I don't think he was sure either. So for the most part, I had to figure it out on my own. I didn't own any like magazines that had guides in it or anything like that either, so it was, like I said, it was just kind of exploring and trying to get through the game just by playing it, right? That's classic, you know, old school kind of way. There was no video guides, there was no YouTube, like I said, there was no internet to even search like written guides at that point in my life. That kind of came, you know, shortly after when dial-up internet was introduced. My goodness, I'm dating myself. I'm a lot older than I thought I was. Anyways, Link to the Past, amazing game. Highly recommend you guys, you know, try it out at some point in your life. You know, go into it expecting that it's going to be different, but go into it, you know, knowing that it's going to be great. Next up, we have Link's Awakening, released in 1993 in all regions in 1993. June in Japan, August in North America. I actually never beat the original Link's Awakening. I played it a little bit on the 3DS Virtual Console. I never beat it on the 3DS Virtual Console. I didn't beat this game until it came out on the Switch. So this one, I actually have something to show you guys. So, of course, we have the game and we have the amiibo. A great pair. This game is absolutely amazing. I love the way that they've redone this game for the Switch and just the artwork that they've, you know, kind of... the art style they chose. It's a beautiful game. If you guys I've got a lot of comments actually saying, you know, my first game was Breath of the Wild, you know, but I'd like to play other games, stuff like that as well. While you're waiting for like Skyward Sword HD or whatever else to come to the Switch, assuming that, you know, maybe you only have a Switch, if you can get a 3DS, there's a lot of Zelda games on there, which we're going to get to in a second. But for now, I would highly recommend picking up this. This is a much more simplistic game than Breath of the Wild, but it's a great game. So when it came out on the Switch, that was the first time I played it, and when I did, I fell in love with this game. I absolutely fell in love with this game. Of course, this is not. I can't remember which year this was released. Was it last year? I think it was last year or the year before. I don't know, man. Time flies, but it was recently, obviously, in the last year or two at the time of recording this. So great game, highly recommend it. Great art style, and I love it, man. It's a beautiful game. A lot more simple, but that's the beauty of the Legend of Zelda series, is that there's so many different experiences to have in the franchise. and whatnot. So anyways, moving on from that, we're going over to one of the greatest games of all time, which at least most people say is the greatest games of all time, Ocarina of Time. Now, I know what people are going to say. I know there's some people out there that say, well, you only think it's the greatest game of all time because of nostalgic factors. Now, here's the thing about me, okay? I own it on the N64. I did not own an N64 when I was younger. To this day, my mom still doesn't even know why we didn't own one. She asks me, why didn't we own one? Because, like, she's also a huge Nintendo fan, and we've owned like every other Nintendo home console, so she has no idea why we didn't own one. But the N64 version, I played it a little bit at friends' houses, right? The N64 was a console that most of my friends owned. I had some family members that owned, and so whenever I'd go to any of their houses, I would play the N64. It was mostly multiplayer games like, you know, GoldenEye 007, or, you know, the multiplayer of Donkey Kong, or Conker's Bad Fur Day, or, you know, all these different multiplayer games, Star Wars Racer. But once in a while, they let me try a little bit of the single player games. My friends were kind of the type that, you know, they didn't want me to play too much of it because they didn't want me to overwrite their save files. But I did get a little bit of experience back then. Never got too far into it. So I don't have as much of a nostalgic factor. Yes, I remember the game. I remember seeing my friends play it. I never beat it, so I didn't have that same experience until it actually came out. Hold on here. I got a stack of games until it came out on the 3DS. So we got the N64 version and the 3DS version. So when it came out on the 3DS, that's when I finally beat it, Ocarina of Time 3D. I had actually played it on Virtual Console, but for some reason I just never finished it until it came out on Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS. And when it did, I became a huge fan of this game. It's actually my third favorite game of all time, and I'll get to why it's only third and not higher than that. I love this game, absolutely love it, but like I said, it's just a great game, and it does hold, it has aged well. It holds its own all these years later. So I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you've never owned a 3DS, pick up a 3DS or a 2DS. 2DS is just basically 3DS without the 3D capabilities. Pick up either one and pick up these games. There's a bunch of Zelda games on the 3DS and 2DS, like Ocarina of Time, that you can play if you don't have like an N64 or whatnot. So, highly recommend, excuse me, picking up Ocarina of Time 3D. Amazing game. I don't know what else to say about it. I just love everything about it. You know, the fact that you know, you travel through time, and it's a lot easier playing on the 3DS, you know, with the water temple, for example, than it was on the N64. Like I said, I never beat it on the N64, but I have tried to play it on the N64, you know, now that I own an N64 and whatnot. So I don't know what else to say about Ocarina of Time, except it's just a really good game. You know, the first 3 temples you're playing as a kid, and then you kind of travel through time and you become an adult. Don't want to spoil too much for those who haven't played it. And then you do a bunch there, and things get really weird when you travel through time. Like the world's so different, and it has this really crazy vibe. I don't know. Anyways, I love it. So Ocarina of Time 3D. Came out 1998, November 21st, 1998 in Japan, and November 23rd, a couple days later in North America. Then we got Majora's Mask, which was the other N64 game, which I have right here, which this one came out, what, 2 years later? 2 years later in the year 2000, April 27th, 2000, October 25th, 2000 in North America. Came out on the N64, and again, this is a game that I didn't really pay much attention to until it came out on the 3DS. I wasn't super aware of it, and again, I own it now with the holographic, look at that, isn't that cool? The holographic front on the N64. But yeah, I didn't really pay attention to the game until it got announced for the 3DS. And when it did, there was that classic trailer. Go watch it. The trailer was so good, and I was like, dude, this is such a mysterious, dark, kind of like creepy game. I love it. I was so attracted to it because it was so mysterious and ominous and dark and like, whoa, like, I don't know, man. And we all, maybe we don't all, but go watch the trailer, the reveal trailer for the 3DS version, and there was that, you know, that music, like the I can't even hum it, but you know, you know what I'm saying, hopefully. And it was just so good. And then, you know, playing through it, you know, with all the different masks and stuff, and it was just so weird, man. It was like it's in a different world. It's set after Ocarina of Time, right? You go back and you're on the search for a friend. I'm not going to say exactly who in case you haven't played it. You're on a search for a friend, and you end up finding yourself in this place, and you meet Skull Kid, who who you know, is wearing the Majora's Mask, and it, you know, corrupts him basically, and all kinds of weird stuff's going on, and you know, there's like this impending doom of the moon crashing into the earth within 3 days. And it's just like, it's just a crazy game. Honestly, it is my second favorite Zelda game of all time. It's very close to my first, but my first still has an edge, and we'll get to that in a little bit once we get there. But highly recommend this game. Then they had announced the 3DS version. So I remember we had Future Shop and we had Best Buy, right? Future Shop was kind of like Best Buy, electronics store. Best Buy is completely bought out Future Shop. I'm in Canada, by the way. And I remember they announced like this event for the new 3DS XL and Majora's Mask. So you can go ahead, try the new 3DS XL and play Majora's Mask. My dad took me, I went with him, and we went to Future Shop. We played a little bit of Majora's Mask on the new 3DS XL. It was a great time. And then we got these cool little keychains, Majora's Mask keychains, which I'm not sure where I put mine. It's probably over there somewhere. But when they announced this 3DS, this new 3DS XL, my dad came in clutch. He actually drives around for what he does for work, and so he had the opportunity to quickly swing by EB Games when this got announced and drop a pre-order for me. So if it wasn't for him, I would not have gotten this, and that is the Majora's Mask 3DS, the new 3DS XL. It is gold. It has this beautiful front. We have Majora's Mask in the middle, right? We have the Zora mask, we have the deity mask, the Goron mask, and the Deku mask at the top there. And it's just a great console. I love this console so much. The 3DS in and of itself, like, you guys have to get one. It's a little wobbly. You have to get one, either 3DS or 2DS. This is one of the greatest Nintendo consoles of all time, in my opinion. And I just love the fact that I have the Majora's Mask one. And like I said, it's such a good game. It is such a good game, and I just highly recommend playing it, and it's just so dark, man. And the side quests are some of the best things in any Zelda game. Like, these are some of the best side quests. It has some insane side quests in it, and you know, like I said, it's just like, it's great. I don't know what else to say about it, but the plot is amazing, and I really hope Nintendo brings over Ocarina and Majora's Mask and make like an HD version of these two. If they did that for Zelda's 35th, oh my goodness, man. I mean, a lot of people have been wanting it. Will they do it? I guess we'll find out later this year. Anyways, we got more Zelda games to get to. Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Now, this was kind of like a 2-in-1 release for the Game Boy Color. Also released on the 3DS Virtual Console. Never owned it on the Game Boy Color. I owned a Game Boy Color, but I never owned these games on it. I only owned these games on the 3DS Virtual Console, and I actually still haven't finished them. I started playing them a little bit, but I never got to finish them. So these came out originally in February 27th, 2001, which is 20 years ago. So the game's 20 years old. Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, and it was developed in conjunction with Capcom, actually, interestingly enough, and it features kind of like a time travel game mechanic. At least Oracle of Ages. In Oracle of Seasons, the game mechanic is that there's like a changing of it changes the seasons of the year. So they're a little bit different in that regard. Again, I never beat either one of them, actually, so I can't say too much about that one, unfortunately. So they are great games. I have friends who have played them and absolutely love them. The little bit I played, they are really great games. And yeah, I mean, like I said, they're available on 3DS Virtual Console. Like I said, if you get a 3DS, between Virtual Console and the actual games that have been re-released for 3DS, like, you have so much Zelda content, it's not even funny. Probably the most Zelda content of any other Nintendo console, to be quite frank and honest with you guys. Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past and Four Swords. So we got Four Swords on the Game Boy Advance in December 3rd, 2002. So it was Link to the Past and Four Swords mixed. Never played it, so I can't say too much about that, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to move on actually from that one. Not much to say from me on that one. Like I said, I never played it. Link to the Past I played, but I never played Link to the Past and Four Swords on the Game Boy Advance, is what I'm saying. Then we got Wind Waker. Now, Wind Waker is an interesting one. Wind Waker, I mean, we're going to be getting to these HD releases, obviously, at some point. But I'm just going to include them right now, real quick. Wind Waker was a game that GameCube was one of my favorite consoles of all time. It was such a great console. Obviously 3DS as well. I just loved the GameCube, and I never owned Wind Waker on it. It was one game that I always was intrigued by and I wanted to own, but for some reason, it was like one of the few games I never owned. I owned the majority of like the greats of the GameCube era, like, you know, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Mario Kart Double Dash, Twilight Princess, which we're going to talk about in a second. What else? You know, all those just different games. Super Mario Sunshine. I owned all those, you know, major games, but for some reason I never owned Wind Waker. Wind Waker, I didn't actually play until the HD version. What I will say is once I did play the HD version, I absolutely fell in love with this game. It has a different art style, you know, featuring Toon Link, right? Toon Link would be this version of Link right here. And Wind Waker HD came out on the Wii U, of course. So I played it on the Wii U. I'm expecting them to port Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to the Switch. There's rumors going around that they're going to do that for Zelda's 35th anniversary. Nothing is confirmed at the time of recording this, but there are rumors of it. And I'm hoping that it does actually happen because this game is really good. Obviously, the fact that, you know, not many people own a Wii U means I never got to play the HD version. And this game is really beautiful in the HD version of Wind Waker. It's really nice. It's beautiful. It's a lot of fun. It's a different kind of Zelda game, right? It's kind of like, it has a different art style, has a more cartoony art style. That's why it's called Toon Link. And it's just, yeah, it's just a really great experience. I don't know what else to say really about it. I mean, there's a lot of traveling by boat across the sea to different islands and stuff. It's great. Aesthetically pleasing. It's just a pleasurable game in every way, man. It's just beautiful. So, Wind Waker, like I said, never played it on the GameCube originally when it came out in 2002, December 13th, 2002, but I did play it on the HD version, and I really hope that it comes to Switch, so I can own it on the Switch and play it again. And if it does, we'll play it here on the channel. Then we have the Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, which came out on the GameCube in 2004, March 18th, 2004. This is fun. There's a funny story about this I was telling recently, is that this was a game, I think I was actually talking about it in our Discord. If you want to join our Discord, it's linked in the description below. But Four Swords was a game that I never got to really play all that much or at all. But it was a game that I remember going in Walmart with my mom, and I seen Four Swords there, and I was like, hey, can we buy it? And I guess because it was like 4 swords and there's 4 links on the front, she assumed it was like a multiplayer game only, and that you couldn't play by yourself. And that was kind of my assumption as well. I didn't find out till like recently actually that you can actually play it just a single person and the other links will follow, right? So yeah, Four Swords Adventures. Not something I got to ever play, not a game I ever got to play, but I always really wanted to. So maybe eventually I'll be able to go back and play it. Maybe I'll buy it for the GameCube or something, or if it comes to, you know, if it comes over to, you know, Virtual Console or whatever, or, you know, if they make a GameCube, Nintendo Switch Online kind of thing, and bring that over, you know, hopefully eventually I get to play it. Next up, we got the Minish Cap. Now, the Minish Cap is one game that I've heard amazing things about. A lot of people love this game. I love what I've seen of it, but I have unfortunately not played this game. Came out in 2004 on the Game Boy Advance. It is also on the 3DS Ambassador Virtual Console and the Wii U Virtual Console. But again, I never got to play the Minish Cap. I really hope to play it at some point. Maybe they'll remake it like they did Link's Awakening, and I'll get to finally play it. But unfortunately, like I said, I don't have any experience with this game myself. But heard amazing things about it, and I'd love to finally play it at some point. Twilight Princess. So Twilight Princess came out originally on the GameCube in 2006. On the GameCube and on the Wii. It was kind of like a simultaneous release. Came out on both. Then it came out later in 2016 on the Wii U in the HD version, which, by the way, Wind Waker HD was a 2013 release. I forgot to mention that. So Wind Waker HD came out in 2013. And so, yeah, so it originally came out in 2006. When I played this game, I originally played it on the, hold on here. I originally played it on the GameCube. Okay, I have 4 different versions here, so let me go through this here. So I originally played it on the GameCube. Twilight Princess. When I played this game on the GameCube, my goodness gracious, I fell head over heels for this game. Absolutely love it. It is so good, and it has become my favorite game of all time. Not my favorite Zelda game. Like, I am talking my favorite game ever. Like, you put every single game ever made, not just Nintendo, but I'm talking PlayStation, Xbox, Atari, Sega, whatever other consoles ever existed. You throw every game into one basket, and this will be the game that is my top favorite game of all time. If I had to live off of one game, it would be Twilight Princess. This game is so great. I think the reason why Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time make my top 3, and why this is my number 1 game, is because this game was kind of like influenced by a mixture of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. And I love both those games so much. So you put those games together and make a baby, and you get Twilight Princess. I beat this game so many times on the GameCube, I have lost count. I am so in love with this game that I own it on the GameCube. And then once I got a Wii, I owned it on the Wii. But I don't have one version. I have both. You're like, why do you have both? Well, I have the normal original release, and then I have the Nintendo Collects release. Why? Because I wanted to own all the versions of Twilight Princess. I love this game so much. It is so good. And so, interestingly enough, when it released on the Wii, everything was mirrored, so everything was backwards, right? So everything that, like, if there was a treasure chest that would be on the left in the GameCube version, it would be on the right in the Wii version, and vice versa, right? Everything was reversed, so it was almost like a new experience because everything was backwards. It was playing a mirror version of it because of the motion controls, right? You had the Wii and you had the friggin' woo-woo, you know? You gotta swing it around. Not the same kind of motion controls Skyward Sword has, but it was still, you know, kind of motion based. So that's why they flipped they flipped everything, because Link was left-handed in here, and since the Wii was typically held in your right hand, well, they made Link right-handed in the Wii version. So amazing game. I got 3 versions here, but I have actually one more version. I have the Wii U version, which was Twilight Princess HD. When this, you got to understand something, okay? This is where I'm getting really giddy. You got to understand that when this game got announced, I lost my mind. I absolutely lost my mind, because you got to understand, this is literally my favorite game. It's not just my favorite Zelda game. This is my favorite amiibo, with good reason, the Wolflink amiibo. It is my favorite game of all time, and so when they announced an HD version coming to the Wii U, and that it came with that Wolflink amiibo, dude, I was done. I was done for. I went crazy, and it's just so good. Like I said, there's so much dark kind of elements to it. It's very ominous, mysterious. It feels a lot like Ocarina of Time, and it feels a lot like Majora's Mask, kind of meshed into one. You know, you have a period of time where you enter the twilight and it turns you into a wolf, and you gotta, you know, work with this character called Midna, and there's this whole thing in and of itself with that. So I'm not gonna spoil it too much, but I really hope this comes to the Switch. I will buy it again for the Switch. If there's an amiibo bundle, I will buy that again. I don't care. I really want this on the Switch, just for an excuse to, first of all, be able to play it on my Switch, and second of all, just for an excuse to replay it with this coming back to the forefront. So I'm expecting them to port over Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD to the Switch, because Nintendo's been porting every other Zelda game, and I would be very surprised if they don't port over Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD, because they're like maybe two of the only not Zelda games, but two of the only Nintendo games from the Wii U that haven't got ported over yet. You know, they ported over a lot of them, most recently Super Mario 3D World. So, you know, I would expect that for Zelda's 35th anniversary. I'll be very surprised if they don't do it. So hopefully maybe later in the year, we're getting Skyward Sword in July. Maybe we'll get Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, maybe as a bundle, maybe later towards Christmas if we're lucky enough. So anyways, Twilight Princess, I highly recommend you guys play it. Maybe wait, I guess, a little bit to see if it comes out for the Switch. If not, I'm sure you could probably find a Wii U for a decent price. It's not the most popular console, and you know, whatever. And you can play Wii games on it as well. So a great game. Like I said, originally came out in 2006, and then 10 years later for the Wii U, 2016, and maybe 5 years after that, 5 years, right? 5 years after that for the Switch. Nintendo, make it happen. All right, we're gonna move on to some DS games. All right, so we got some DS games here. We have the Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. Now, this game was very, very unique in and of itself. So what made this game unique is that you, on the 3DS and on the DS, there was a little pen thing called a stylus, right? You used the stylus. I don't know if you guys can see this. I might actually be re-uploading this to my podcast, Jay Skeleton Rants. So if you are listening to this on my podcast, Jay Skeldon Rants. Well, yeah, now you know that you should come over to the Nintendo channel, Jay Skeldon's Nintendo World on YouTube, to see the video portion, or Jay Skeldon Rants on YouTube. But as you can see, you use the stylus to do things. You would trace, like for example, draw a path for your boomerang, and your boomerang would go along that path. So that's the mechanic that made this game very, very unique. Like I said, there's always different mechanics in different Zelda games, and I had a lot of fun with this game. I really, really enjoyed this game. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. They also had a mechanic where there was torches, and you'd have to blow out the torches, and you'd try to figure out, how do I do that? Well, there was a microphone on the DS. You had to blow into the microphone in order to blow out the torch. So, figuring that out was like mind-blowing. I was like, yo, I actually have to blow into the microphone? It was really cool. So anyone who's maybe played the PS5 recently with like Astro's Playroom and experienced, having to blow into the mic for certain things, Nintendo did it first, all the way back in Phantom Hourglass, which again was released in, what did I say, 2007 on the DS, 2016 on the Wii U Virtual Console. So again, if you have a Wii U, Virtual Console, baby. So yeah, great game. It was originally developed as the Legend of Zelda 4 Swords DS, I'm reading here. It has its Toon Link, again. It takes place in the same kind of chronological timeline as Wind Waker. Yes, there is a timeline. You have to look that one up, because if we got into that, this episode would be a lot longer than you would expect. Next up, what was it? 2 years later, in 2009 for the DS, 2016 for the Wii U Virtual Console, Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks came out. Now, to this day, I have not finished this game yet. I have gotten a couple temples in, but I haven't finished it. For some reason, I didn't own it when it originally came out on the DS. I only owned it. I bought this copy when I'd already owned a 3DS, to give you guys a little bit of a timeline. So Phantom Hourglass I played on my original DS console. Spirit Tracks only on I only bought it when I got it had a 3DS. And so yeah, I don't know, I never got to finish this game, but it's a really fun game. It's a direct sequel to Phantom Hourglass, and unlike Phantom Hourglass, which again you're traveling by boat a lot in the waters, this is, you're traveling by train on land, and it's just a great game in and of itself as well. So I definitely got to go finish it. Like I said, what I've played from it was a really fun game. It was great, and I got to go finish it. So moving on from that, we're getting hold on here. Something is missing. No, never mind. Nothing's missing. We have The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which the HD version just got announced. This game came out for the Wii originally in 2011. So it came out November 2011 for the Wii, and it used the motion controls in a different way than Twilight Princess for the Wii did. Twilight Princess for the Wii, it was just kind of like, it was just like waggle controls, meaning like you could just move the Joy-Con, move the Wii remote however you want, and it would just swing a sword. This was more precise, so you had to have this thing called Wii Motion Plus, which was either an attachment for the old Wii remotes, or you'd have to get a new Wii remote, and it was more precise. So, for example, if you were holding the Joy-Con, the Wii remote, wherever you move the Wii remote, Link's sword would move in that exact way. So there were certain things where you'd have to raise your Wii remote above your head, which would make Link raise his sword above his head to charge up your sword and then swing it down. And they used this precise motion as well for certain things. So there's certain enemies where you'd have to, slash them either vertically or horizontally. So you'd have to go either up and down or left and right, or even diagonally sometimes. And so that was just a very unique, portion of this game. A lot of people hated the motions. The motions were not the most accurate, but I really enjoyed what it was. I enjoyed the experience, and that it was unique, and that it was definitely, it was different and it was unique. I really like that. So personally, I will most likely be using the Joy-Cons to play Skyward Sword HD. I'll probably try the buttons for fun, but I mean, to me, part of the fun was just like using the motions like as if you're holding the sword yourself, right? And then the nunchuck, which would be your left Joy-Con on the HD version, you're going to be using as your shield. So if you're holding the Joy-Con or the nunchuck, you would swing it forward to do like a shield bash. So really cool kind of mechanics in that. I think this game is beautiful. Skyloft, which is the place where you start, which is a city in the sky. By the way, this is at the very beginning of the Legend of Zelda timeline. This is how it all started. So you actually craft the Master Sword and the Hylian Shield in this game. Now, those are actually the Hylian shield at least is missable. You actually have to collect certain resources if you want to craft it, so that's kind of like an optional thing. Otherwise, you just have a basic shield the whole game. That's where it all started. Like I said, Skyloft is an absolute beautiful place. I love the music in this game. I love the characters, the environments. I absolutely love Skyloft in and of itself. It's such a pleasure, man. I hope those of you guys who get to try it for the first time will see what I mean by Skyloft just being a great, pleasurable kind of environment. It's just really cool. And again, the music is just amazing. I love the music in this game. There's a lot of great stuff about this. Like I said, the motion controls were a little wonky. I'm not crazy about this one section called the Silent Realm. Well, it's actually multiple sections, but I'm not crazy about the Silent Realm. You'll experience that for yourself when you play it on the Switch, if you do. Or if you played on the Wii, you know what I'm talking about. But again, it's just a great game. I love it so much, and that's why I'm so happy that they announced it an HD version for the Switch. And I was losing my mind. If you missed the reaction for that, again, if you're listening to this on maybe my podcast channel, Jay Skelton's Nintendo World, you can go check that out. And I had a reaction where I was screaming very, very intensely. So really excited about this coming to the Switch. You guys have to play it when it comes out for the Switch. The music is so good. I can't stress that enough. Skyloft is one of my favorite areas in any Zelda game. It's just like it's just so enjoyable. I love it. That and Orden Village in Twilight Princess. I know some people didn't like that, that section lasted so long in Twilight Princess, but I enjoyed the environment and just kind of the experience of Orden Village. And I like experiencing Link's, start before he gets into this crazy adventure, just kind of like his humble beginnings, right? I love when a Zelda game kind of, features that kind of stuff, where we get to kind of experience, where Link started. Anyways, moving on from that, we have the next year, not the next year, but 2 years later in 2013, for the 3DS, we have A Link Between Worlds. Now, this is a great game. A Link Between Worlds was a clever way to remake A Link to the Past in a way that was entirely a new game. So this takes place in the same world as A Link to the Past, and it has a lot of similarities to A Link to the Past, but technically this is an entirely this is a new game. You couldn't even really call this a remake because it's an entirely new game, and it is very, very good. The mechanic in here was like paintings, so you could become a painting on the wall to be able to go from like one ledge to another. So if you can have access to the wall, you become a painting, and you just traverse the wall until you get to the next ledge. The downside to that is obviously it could run out and then you could fall, and that would suck. So it wasn't unlimited, of course. There was kind of like a stamina gauge in a sense, which, by the way, speaking of stamina gauges, I forgot to mention that in Skyward Sword, there were certain things like stamina that was introduced for the first time, which again, when Nintendo announced Skyward Sword HD, they announced a lot of things that, we see in Breath of the Wild that were originally announced in Skyward Sword. But yeah, A Link Between Worlds, amazing game. Again, this is why I highly recommend you guys owning a 3DS or 2DS so you can play all these games: Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, A Link Between Worlds, all the virtual console stuff that's on there. Because this is a really good game. Like I said, it's remade. It's a new game set in the world of Link to the Past is all I can say really about it. You can do the dungeons in any order, and there's all these different kinds of items and stuff, and it's just an absolute pleasure. So I love that game so much. Now, the next game we're going to be talking about, we're almost done, guys, bear with me. The next game we're going to be talking about is a game that I kind of hope that they bring over to the Switch for a specific reason, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we have The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes. This game was a multiplayer only game. It was a 3-player multiplayer game, and the reason I really hope that they bring it to the Switch is because it was super wonky connection wise on the 3DS. You were constantly getting disconnected, or it was lagging. The servers really sucked. And it sucks because this game had so much fun potential. The little bit that I was able to play of it, I had an absolute blast with this game. It is a really fun game. There was download play, so you could play locally, but the connections were not good in and of itself, like mostly online. But basically, you would have to go through like these dungeons as a 3-player kind of co-op thing. You'd have to work as a team, so sometimes you would have to like pick each other up to throw each other on a ledge that was super high. You had to work as a team. and it was so unique and it was so fun. Again, a really fun multiplayer game that I think would work so good on the Switch, especially the Switch, you know, being either portable or you can play on your TV. I think this game would work fantastically on the Nintendo Switch, and I really hope that for Zelda's 35th anniversary, they bring Triforce Heroes to Nintendo Switch Online. I think it would be so perfect, and it's such a fun game. Like I said, the only thing that hindered this game is the fact that connections on the 3DS were atrocious. They were not good. They were bad. So highly recommend playing this if it does come to the Switch. I wouldn't really recommend it as much on the 3DS unless you have two people like that you can play with in like local play in your household or whatever. If you can get together with like 3 people, obviously it's kind of hard at the time of recording this with the state of the world, but you know, if you can get a couple people together, you know, the connection's a little bit better over local play as opposed to online. But like I said, if I really hope Nintendo brings this to Nintendo Switch Online, it would be so perfect. It would be so perfect for the console. So we're almost done, guys. We're almost done. We are super close to the end. We have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now this game simultaneously released on the Wii U and the Switch version. Yes, I own both. I told you I'm a Zelda fan. I'm trying to own every single Zelda game ever known to mankind. The Switch and the Wii U. Now, this game was an absolute pleasure. Obviously an open world concept. The one thing I didn't like about it was the Divine Beast. I feel like, you know, kind of took away from the classic kind of dungeons of the Legend of Zelda franchise. That said, this is still a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of a game for me. I think it's an absolute masterpiece, and it deserves to be that. But I'm not crazy about, you know, how the story was kind of loose. You could have missed some story elements because it was so open world. I mean, you could go straight to Hyrule Castle at the very beginning and fight the final boss at the very beginning. Of course, you'd be extremely underpowered and it'd be very difficult, but you could do it. But this is a great concept on Legend of Zelda. A lot of people's first games. Personally, I prefer the linear games of The Legend of Zelda than an open world like this. I hope that open world is just a mechanic and it's not necessarily what they're going to do going forward, you know, permanently. At least not to this extent. I'm really anxious to see what they're going to do with the sequel of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which is currently in the works, because I'm really hoping that has more classic dungeons. You know what I mean, right? The classic dungeons, like you have your water temple, your forest temple, your desert temple or spirit temple or whatever, you know, those kind of things, right? Divine Beasts, not a fan of them. They're kind of meh. I had fun doing all the shrines, which were cool. I love the puzzles and the shrines. There's a lot of this game I really love. The music, the vibe, you know, is very peaceful and calm, and it's just an amazing game. Just such a great game. If you haven't played it, play it. If you have played it, you know what I mean. But that said, it is a different experience than most Zelda games, being more open world, you know, having breakable items. You know, I miss, you know, going in a dungeon, first of all, classic dungeon, like I said, and having a certain item that you'd get from that dungeon, you know? So it's like, it'd be like, you know, you go in one dungeon, you get the bow and arrow, and it's like, hey, I need to use the bow and arrow in this dungeon. It may be repetitive in a certain way, but we've had that so consistently through all the Zelda games for so many years, and to me it never felt, you know, like it got tedious or too repetitive, because at the core of it, every story was different, and Nintendo still did a great job in making every Zelda experience different, and they always had different mechanics, like I said, which also added a unique factor to the game. So as much as I do love Breath of the Wild, and I think it's a masterpiece game, and I had such great memories streaming it here on YouTube, you know, early on in my YouTube you know, in my YouTube life, and hanging out with a lot of you guys while I played through this game for the first time. Amazing memories. I love it. I mean, Breath of the Wild is my first video to get me 1 million views on YouTube ever. My guide on Terry Town is sitting over 1 million views. So, you know, this game was also great for me as a content creator as well, and as a fan. So I definitely do love this game, but like I said, you know, I don't like that it lacked classical kind of standard, you know, dungeons, traditional dungeons, and you know, those kind of items. But I did enjoy this very much. Like I said, to me, it's still a 10 out of 10 masterpiece of a game, and I just hope that you know, everything that I kind of had gripes with, and I think a lot of people were not too crazy about those parts of the game either, like the divine beasts replacing traditional dungeons. For example, I hope that they make the story more focused, at least the story more linear, that, you know, it's not missable. Like I said, there's certain things that were kind of like side collectibles that gave you a lot of story, which I feel like should have been stuff that like you could not miss. I feel like that should have been stuff that you had to do, like there was part of a linear path. So I like kind of like, you know, they could always mix it up. Like I said, in a link between worlds, they kind of mixed it up where it was not open world, but it was less linear in the sense that you could do things, you know, more freely. You know, go to whatever dungeon first, but it wasn't like completely blown wide open like Breath of the Wild was. So I don't know, amazing game, but I really hope that we get traditional dungeons and some traditional weapons in the sequel, and a little bit more of a focused linear story. Even if the world is still open to some extent, I hope the story is at least more linear. Does that make sense? So that's obviously, we're gonna get more details about that later on this year in 2021, and that's what we can expect later on. A couple side notes we're gonna go through real quick. Of course, remakes Link's Awakening DX, which came out for the Game Boy Color in 1998, Ocarina of Time Master Quest, which came out for the GameCube in 2002, which included a pre-order bonus with the Wind Waker in Japan. I think it had a demo for the Wind Waker on it, if I remember right. I can't fully remember, but I think so. Of course, Ocarina of Time 3D, which came out in 2011 on the 3DS, Four Swords Anniversary Edition, which came out in 2011 on DSiWare, Wind Waker HD in 2013, Majora's Mask 3D in 2015 on the 3DS, Twilight Princess HD on the Wii U in 2016, Link's Awakening remake in 2019, so yeah, it was 2 years ago already, on the Nintendo Switch, and then of course we're going to be getting Skyward Sword HD in 2001. July 16th, 2001 is going to be that, and hopefully we get Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD ported over. Hopefully they bring Triforce Heroes to Nintendo Switch Online, and hopefully you know, maybe a couple other surprises. Maybe if we're really lucky, we'll get an Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask HD bundle as well. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm just kind of I got my head in the clouds on that one, but maybe. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. This again, I'm going to be uploading this on Jay Skeleton Rant's podcast as well, which is a podcast where I talk about all kinds of topics, like literally anything and everything. But I didn't mean for this to go on so long. So if you guys have made it to the end, mad props to you. Thank you guys so much for that. Let me know. Like I said, if you're listening to this on any of the podcast platforms and you're interested in my gaming content, youtube.com/jskeleton is my non-Nintendo gaming content. youtube.com/jskeletonplaysgames is my Nintendo channel, where it's literally everything Nintendo, where I'm going to be playing, you know, anything that comes out this year. I'm going to be playing there. I recently finished up Super Mario 3D World. We're going to be playing through Skyward Sword HD, which I'm extremely excited for, and anything else Nintendo announces this year. So here's to a good start to the Legend of Zelda's 35th anniversary. Here's to a great year for the Legend of Zelda. Hopefully you have a lot of fun playing Zelda games, whether it's, you know, things that Nintendo are releasing on the Switch, or maybe we just go back and enjoy some of our favorite games on old consoles. Again, let me know in the comment section below. You know, have a discussion. Let me know what is your favorite Zelda game? What was your first Zelda game? You know, anything you want to know. Maybe you're new to the game, you're to the series, and you're kind of curious what games to get into, or what games are good or whatnot, you know, or maybe you want to share some of your stories. You know, let me know. I want to hear it all. I'm super passionate about all this stuff and all that. So please do let me know in the comment section below here on YouTube. So again, you can follow me at jskeleton92 on Twitter. You can check out our Discord in the link in the description below here on YouTube, and whatnot if you want to join our Discord. And like I said, we're going to be playing through all of these games that are going to be coming out this year here on the Nintendo channel. So thanks so much for tuning in. Again, you know, let's continue the discussion in the comment section below, and here's to a great year for Zelda's 35th anniversary. So I'll see you guys soon. Stay safe, stay well, and until the next one, my friends, game on. Skeleton!